Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is Hambone here, and in today's video we're going to be covering my class guide for Lost Ark. This is for the launch, of course. This is for the free-to-play launch. I've been playing it since the 8th or the 9th. When did it come out? It's been the 8th, the 3 days early. I've been playing it, and I've played around with some of the classes now, and so I can give a little bit of an opinion on exactly how I feel about the classes. And what classes are better, what classes are worse. And really, honestly, truthfully, in Lost Ark, they seem very well balanced. And what I'm going to tell you is choose the class that you think is the most interesting. And here is the distribution of how people choose classes. This is, the weight of the classes, if you will. And so what you can see here is that if you're wanting to always be someone who's available to be picked in a raid, you might want to choose like a male martial artist or a gunner female, because your unique buffs buffs don't stack, so 3 of the same paladin aren't going to really benefit you in a raid, whereas a paladin and a martial artist and a berserker is a better mix. So just mixing and matching things really helps out your team in raids and dungeons, etc. Just because buffs don't stack. Now also I will say that in this game there is no tank, healer, and DPS. So it's not really a holy trinity type of game. There's only really 2 support classes that we have access to at launch, and neither of those are really, full-on bona fide healers. And then, of course, your tanks, none of those are really good tanks. You can hold aggro for just a little bit of a time, but it's not going to be like a full-on tank like how you would play in Final Fantasy if you're rocking a paladin or a warrior, whatever case may be, or if you're in World of Warcraft rocking a paladin or warrior or using a druid. It's not going to be the same sort of an experience here. That doesn't happen in this game. Every class is practically a DPS or DPS light. So what we're going to do is go through here, starting with the warrior subset. And by the way, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and get subscribed. Got a lot of videos coming on Lost Ark coming up, with the release of the game being right around the corner. So go ahead and get subscribed if you're not subscribed. Hit the like button if you want to. Let's look at the advanced classes here. So we got the Berserker, who wields a 2-handed sword. He does a lot of big abilities, and he has like a big Berserk ability where he goes nuts and does a lot more damage. And if you're a fan of the spin to win mechanic, there it is. You can see that you can just press the spin button. You hold down the S key, it's default S key, and just spin and spin and spin and spin. Not really. It's probably the least tanky of the warriors, but a really solid DPS, really fun to play, really great. And this was actually my first choice for a main. And then I reevaluated and actually went with a male martial artist because I liked the class a little better, actually. But the Berserker is a very solid choice, very, very solid class overall, and not a bad choice. Let's move on. Also, Berserker is your only option for a 2-handed sword, because the classes in this game, whatever weapon you get is what weapon you get. You can't change a Berserker to an axe, etc. So if you don't like using a 2-handed sword, that's all you can do. Let's look at the Gunlancer. The Gunlancer has as it sounds, a gun. It's basically a gun sword. It is the tankiest of the 3. As you can see, you can just pull your enemies there. It has a little bit more of abilities. It's got a couple of things that generate threat, but they don't last very long. But it is the tankiest of the 3 warrior classes here. And it plays more like a traditional tank than the other 3. But it does not, don't be yelling at your Gunlancer because he's not tanking the whole raid or tanking the whole dungeon. He can't do that. It's not like a tank in other MMOs. He doesn't generate a lot of threat, and so don't expect him to pull everything and generate a bunch of threat. Gunlancer is another solid choice, especially, really for like solo play. These are solid options if you want to play on the warrior playstyle. When you get into the paladin, let's talk about the paladin for a second. He's a 1-handed sword main, and he has holy spells for healing, etc. But his DPS is significantly less than the other 2 here, and they actually got him supporting his teammates here. As you can see, this is one of the only support classes that we have at release. Of the 15, there's 2 support classes, Paladin being one. If you like the Paladin gameplay style, go ahead and go for it, but I am going to tell you that he does way, way less DPS than something like the Berserker or the Gunlancer. I mean, he really, really does significantly less DPS. So you're just going to have to be aware of that fact whenever you're going into content solo. He's just not going to be able to handle it as quickly and easily as the Gunlancer or the Berserker. So let's move on to the Mage subset. For this one, we get 2 classes to pick from the beginning. They're gender-locked female. The warrior classes are gender-locked male. I hate this. I wish it wasn't a thing, but it is a thing, and so we're going to have to deal with it. First one being the bard. That's your other support class. They get a couple of little healing items, mostly party buffs. They do some spells, but mostly party buffs, and they play music the whole time. Decent class. There's a very, very good use for bards, but again, maybe not the best class if you're going through this thing solo, because they're a little lacking on their DPS. But overall, not a bad choice. The bard's a decent choice of class, and I would have mained Holy Healer had that been an option, some kind of priest, but sadly that's not an option, so we got to deal with what we got. Sorceress. Now this is your traditional wizard style class. Very, very, very good at dealing lots of damage. Very, very good at AoE attacks. Well-rounded mage type of character. Of course, if you are okay with being gender locked, sorceress is not a bad choice. If you're looking for a magic character, it's your only choice for a true mage, at least until we get some more of the other classes from the Korean version later on down the line. This is really the only mage option that's a true mage in the game at the moment. And so for this, being what it is, the sorceress is a decent choice. It's a good thing to have in every party. Now let's talk about the martial artist female. They get 3 different subsets, if you will, 3 different advanced classes. And so when you choose a class in a game, you choose your advanced class right away. So instead of like leveling so long and then upgrading into this, you upgrade into this immediately. This is your class. The War Dancer is, like it sounds, just like a kicking around martial artist. And all your martial artists mainly use fist and punches, with some of them using a little bit more of a their toolkit always varies just a little bit based on the class, but they're all very, very similar. They have really solid attack, and they got decent defense, but their AoE is really lacking. Most of the time, you're not going to do a bunch of AoE damage. You're just going to be able to stun lock enemies like that, hit them really quickly, and have a lot of fun. I really have been enjoying my male mage that we'll get to in a second, or male martial artist that I've been playing as. But the War Dancer is just a decent option. Any of these 3 is going to be a solid option. Here is the Scrapper. This is more like, this one plays more just like the martial artist male. The War Dancer is a little different. They dance around, do some different moves. This one plays more like the martial artist male. And honestly, it puts you in mind of like a Goku-esque style person, but in this game. But so Scrapper, another solid choice. Let's look on to the Soul Fist, which is the final option for your martial artist. And once again, very similar playstyle, just a little bit different abilities, and that's really all there is to it. There's not really a whole lot to say about the martial artists here. They all have a similar playstyle, just with different abilities. They're not as varied as, we'll say, the warrior abilities, but you can see there, some of them have a little bit of ranged abilities. The Soul Fist being the one with the most kind of ranged abilities out of the 3, and overall a very solid choice, depending on what you want to do. And there again, like a Goku-esque fighting style. But depending on what you want to do, they're very solid options. The martial artists do good DPS, and they're very good to have. But they are a little, they're very mobile, but you got to be moving around with them a lot. And there you can see its ultimate attack is like a Spirit Palm. Very Goku-esque. But overall, you've got to be sure and move around a lot as a martial artist, because you can get hurt really easily. They're not the toughest of the classes. So you just have to keep that in mind and moving. Same thing goes with the mage, obviously. And now let's look at the martial artist male. Okay. Only option you have is striker. Very solid punching and kicking classes with a very nice toolkit. Very good abilities. And then the ultimate is like an empowered. You see there how it turned red? It's kind of like an empowered ability that you can use to make them just that much stronger. Very, very, very solid class. Easily stun lock enemies. Does a lot of damage. And overall, very, very enjoyable class. Lacks a little bit on the AoE side of things. But you can see there's one of your special abilities. You turn into a tornado and spin around and just wipe them out. Very, very good class. Very fun. The combat for it feels fluid. And it has been my choice of main so far. Very enjoyable. I've had the most fun playing the martial artist male out of all of these. Now, for the gunner male, this is the gunner subset. So we're going to look into it. First one is a sharpshooter, so if you like using a bow, this is for you. This is the only class in the game that you can use a bow with, and it's a decent choice. The combat in this game doesn't lend itself very well to a bow. It's a isometric, action-y style combat, And so I struggled a little bit with this one. I tried this one. I thought maybe this one would be one that I would main. I struggled a little bit, and so I just kind of dropped this one and moved back into the melee classes. Very good option, good at kiting enemies, but it is very squishy, okay? You're going to have to really be careful because they can really hurt you. Has a lot of decent mobility. You know, it's very good on the mobility side of things, but it is very, very squishy. You've really got to be careful because it'd be so easy to get killed with this class. You know, it doesn't have a lot of health and doesn't really have a whole lot of armor either. So you have to be aware of that. Now, the Deadeye, he has the choice of 3 different guns depending on the situation. You got a sniper rifle, a shotgun, and then like a pistol style weapon. There's this shotgun, as you can see there, and he has it's very wide range of toolkit. So what you have to do is swap the weapons depending on the situation. You know, what's calling for damage or what's calling for this, or you know, the groups of enemies, etc. Very interesting playstyle. One of the only playstyles like this in an MMO. Very, very interesting. I never really got into it. Wasn't a huge fan, but it is a solid class. Very good DPS, very good range DPS for the game. But once again, very squishy. You just have to be careful. Now, moving on to probably the most unique of the 3, and that is the Artillerist, because he just has a gigantic gun that can also shoot flamethrowers, turn into a minigun, shoot big bombs. Really cool looking class. Really nicely well done class, in my opinion. Very, very nicely done class. Overall, he's a decent class, and he has his skill set relies on his big gun, the big boomstick that he carries around. Once again, a little on the squishy side, so you just have to be careful, but a solid option if you're looking for a gun class with a little bit more flair, something with some explosion to it. You're going to really enjoy the Artillerist. Now, let's look at the female gunners. The only one that is the option is the Gunslinger. Same kind of thing as, what is it called? I have to go back. Same kind of thing as the Deadeye. So you're going to be swapping between your weapons. Same deal, just a female version pretty much. You know, they have a little bit of different skill set on some of their skills, but overall very, 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 very similar. Just a female version of that class. So if you're liking the Gunslinger, you'll probably like the Deadeye. Now, the Assassin. This is a gender-locked, female-only class, and there's 2 options. So if you like the rogue style of gameplay, this is fairly similar to a rogue, but as you can see on the screen, it does a little bit of a different thing. It's got a little bit of its own flair to it. Pretty solid option. Very nice class. Good DPS, good melee DPS, but it is gender-locked to female characters only, and so that is something to note. Overall, decent class, does some good damage, but once again, it's very squishy, and it's a little bit lacking on the AoE side, sort of like how the martial artists male and female were lacking on the AoE side of things. So it's a little lacking on that, but overall, not a bad option. Now, the Shadow Hunter is like a demon hunter-esque style class, draws on a little bit of power of the demon. Really cool class, really interesting looking class. As you can see, it like channels the power of demon abilities to do a lot of damage. Really awesome looking class. One of the coolest looking classes in the game, in my opinion. I just couldn't get over playing a female character. I can't do it. I have to play male characters just in my nature. But if you're okay with playing a female character, this is a great option. Does good DPS and in case you haven't noticed, I've said that they do good DPS practical on every class. The classes in this game are incredibly well balanced, very, very solidly balanced, and you're not going to find any one class really overperforming the others. I mean, they've had a few years of tuning these, and so you're going to find that no matter what you choose, it's a pretty decent option for a class, and that they have a lot of utility in their toolkit, and they complement each other very well. But overall, this has been my long-winded class guide, and I hope it helps just kind of explain what each class does and how they are good at things and what they're good at. And I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Be sure to subscribe if you are interested in seeing more Lost Ark content on the channel. Drop a like. Let me know what I could do better in the comments down below, and tell me what class you're going to be playing in the Lost Ark release. Have a fantastic day.